hanging out, entering the ground, opening outwardly. The belly opens, releases outwardly. The joints open and release outwardly. Hanging out, releasing, opening. Allowing weight to settle underside to all parts and points of the body. The other aspect of that is, let's say it's an arm. Let the weight settle to the lowest points. Just like water would. Water would always drift and settle to the lowest points. But that also has a commensurate releasing of the rest of that part of the body. So this is kind of an easy imagery using the arm, but it's because this is the bottom side. And as everything settles along the bottom side, it's not just that. The other aspect of that is that it empties or releases or opens all the rest of it above that. So this becomes very light and open and spacious, and this becomes settled and substantial. So it's not, I mean, weight underside and focusing on just this is good. It's a good start. But there is a yin-yang pairing, or there's an effect. So the settling, eventually you become just as acutely aware of that opening, emptying, spacifying effect on that area. Not just the settling, but the effect of that settling, which creates an opening and spaciousness. Now, this is has a surface area, so it's easy to kind of think of that. It's every little point. It's the bottom of the armpits, bottom of the shoulder joints. It's each fingertip point. So it's every lowest point, every lowest surface, every lowest point. Weight settles there and has a commensurate releasing and opening and emptying of that part from that point and above. So letting weight settle underside, you might feel that settling, that heaviness, that relaxing, that calming. But then you also want to be open to the effects, to the result, to the other side of that, other aspect, where it's an opening, emptying, releasing. Creating more space, empty space, rather than dense space. And coming to the Dan Chin can even help accentuate that weight undersideness or settledness. So you could imagine the bowl of the hips, and so the very bottom surface area of the bowl, the weight settles underside to that surface area. Or if you're relating to a point or a sphere just below the navel, the weight settles to the bottom of that sphere or bottom of that point, which again creates a commensurate opening, emptying from that point up. And each out breath just encourages more weight to settle underside, and therefore encourages more opening, emptying, spacifying. Then from here, allowing the knees to bend perhaps even a little bit more as we start some hip circles, hip rotations. And have the mind lead the way So the intention is the wind, the body is the sail. So your clear, strong intention drives the body motion. Still hanging out from the string, that'll help keep weight underside. Of course, as soon as we go into any movement, notice the pulling up or pulling in, how the weight underside will tend to be lost to one degree or another, and some places more than others. So you can either reemphasize the hanging of the string or reemphasize the imagery and feeling of weight settling underside. So notice what parts are losing that, and you can intend and allow that to come back to weight underside, hanging out. And as you allow the hip circles to become bigger and bigger, you can become conscious of the ball joints, the hips really nicely rotating. But again, noticing any tightening that might be occurring, so allowing the body to soften and release and open in the midst of the movement. And then emphasizing the hanging outness or the weight undersideness to bring you back to vertical stillness. Reemphasize again, weight underside, then send the mind clearly the other way. Let the body be swept up by that current of intention. The body is soft and open enough that it's just swept up, it's caught by that current of intention, by the wind. The body becomes that silken open sail. Keeping weight underside or noticing when you lose it. And physically, as that motion gets quite big, you can feel the nice rotation in the hip joints. So weight underside on the arms, shoulders. Emphasizing the hanging out or the weight settling to drift you back to centered stillness. And then tailbone circles, so just a little bit more specific. So imagine your tailbone touching the ground and you're tracing a circle on the ground with the tailbone. Still allowing weight to settle, energy to sink without any of the collapsation, any sinking of the weight or the energy only triggers an openness and emptiness. So imagine your tailbone is actually touching the ground through that whole circle. And then send the mind the other way, directing the tailbone the other direction, touching the floor, the entire circle, releasing with each breath. And emphasize even more the hangingness or the weight underside, settledness to drift you back to centered stillness. Staying with that very specific focus on the point of the tailbone. We'll swing the tailbone forward and back, still touching the floor. So the hips are swinging like a bell. Try not to articulate that with your muscles. So it's more like a pendulum. Just swinging that weighted end. And so just swinging the hips, not doing belly, stomach crunches or arching the back. It's hanging. The tailbone is still touching the floor. Feel, especially as you're able to release and open and not tense into the movement, not pull in. Any releasing that's encouraged or allowed to occur. Any releasing in the lower vertebrae, any releasing in the sacrum, any releasing in the pelvis. So it's gently massaging, gently coaxing these tissues and joints to release and open, especially if we're hanging out. If we continue to release, soften, and allow weight to settle, it'll eventually really allow and coax tissues and joints to release, open, and separate. And smaller and smaller, we'll settle back to vertical stillness. And one more thing, we'll now swing the tailbone side to side, be as best you can, hang out. So again, that's really up to the leg strength to be able to allow this to happen in a soft and relaxed way. The tailbone is going to swing side to side. So like now, hips are this weighted pendulum. Tailbone is grazing along the floor, side to side. Notice any ensuing tightness or tightening. Try to replace that with a releasing opening. Noticing any tissues, any joints that are willing to release to some degree. And just like a weighted pendulum, eventually it'll come to centered stillness. We just let it hang, releasing on each out breath. And then as you slowly come to centered stillness, hanging stillness, feel any residual openness that's been created by this soft, gentle, coaxing movements. Openness that wasn't there before, releaseness, and what areas are released and open more than it was before. And continuing to allow the out breath and the hanginess or the weight undersideness to encourage further opening or continuing opening. What areas? And gently shifting the weight side to side, turning the open leg, turning the open foot to gently rock out. And just swing the arms a little bit, breathe into the belly, move those legs a little bit, just to articulate those joints. Just roll the shoulders, make sure the knees are bent, and the lower back is flat. Other way. And standing on one leg, make sure the knee's well bent. The ball of the foot articulating from the ball joint of the hip. The knee and foot are completely aligned. So this is the one piece. Let each rotation be further release in the hip joint and wherever else you might feel it. But rather than a muscular contraction to move this, every rotation is like a mini massage, a coaxing of things to release and open. It's a gentle coaxing and releasing and pulling tensions out. Slowly shift the weight to the other side. Take a moment to make sure you're hanging straight, not overcompensating, not overly tight in the leg you're standing in. It's soft too. And then the point of contact with the floor is the ball of the foot. All the action is in the ball joint of the hip. And let that soft, relaxed movement also reverberate through all the joints in your body. But have a sense, rather than muscularly rotating, have a sense that the leg falls forward, falls closed, falls open, falls closed, falls open. But because your intentional leading, your intentional vector is continuous, it creates a nice smooth movement, nice smooth spiral or circular movement. But physically, it's like falling, closed, falling, open. But your intention is continuous, your mental lead is continuous. So it makes a nice, smooth rotation. Each rotation is further releasing deeper and deeper inside that hip joint. And slowly transition. Same thing, but this time it'll be on the heel. The toes are, try not to tense too much in the shin and ankle to pull the toes up. So it's okay if the toes are just barely off the ground. We don't want to create a lot of tension muscularly here because that will be counterproductive to the releasing and opening elsewhere. So hang out. And again, rotating from deep inside the ball joint. Deep, deep, deep inside the body. Then slowly shift, hang out, relax, release, touch down on the heel. And you're massaging the ball joint from deep inside of it. And so I'm just letting my arm kind of illustrate what I'm doing with the leg. It just falls this way, flops this way, flops that way, rather than doing a calisthenic kind of exercise approach. It's releasing, releasing, releasing. And coming back. And just moving those legs a little bit. Noticing your skeleton, roam your attention through your body, noticing different joints as you move through your body, wrist joints, shoulder blades, spine, of course. So moving your X-ray attention and noticing how that part of the body wants to move, to relieve it, to release it, any residue tension, moving through. So living awareness, moving awareness through your body and letting the body move in a way that it wants and needs to move to release any residual tension. Check in with the belly, probably wants to release a bit more or can release a bit more. Hang out, knees unlocked. Let the weight of the arms and hands pull the shoulders straight down. Want the ears right over the shoulders, so it's chin drop down slightly, or the back crown of the head pointing directly to the sky as the tailbone touches down on one sharp point on the floor. Let the shoulder blades slide down, knees nicely bent. And you send the tailbone this way, you're going to do a spinal wave, one vertebrae at a time, and back the other way. And do the best you can to just let one bone be pulled at a time over. So all this stays here until it's pulled over. So tailbone goes out. So all this stays here until the next vertebrae is pulled over, next vertebrae, and finally to the top of the neck and then the head. Let your breathing be soft and the belly soft. It's important that the lower back is virtually straight, otherwise it'll always be kinked and it can never release. So we need to hang the hips, hang the tailbone, so that the lower vertebrae are released as much as possible. Okay. A little wider. Toes out, knees out. So I'll go through the action of this physically and then get into more detail with the mind and the energy. So we're going to sink down just like a Tai Chi squat, but we're going to bend forward a little bit more. Good lifting principles. And we are going to lift or actually pull energy from the earth. So it's like you're scooping down, draw the energy from the earth, and draw it into you, into your belly, dantian, or your abdomen. And then we're going to turn the hands over and sink down a little bit to push up to the sky, like we're giving that energy through us. So our body's going to be this empty vessel, push the energy up through us up to the sky. And then we do the reverse. We're gonna reach up, palms up, as if we're drawing energy from the sky, pouring it down through our body. And we're going to pause here at the center, at the dantian, palms facing the navel or dantian. We're going to be pausing there. And then we continue to send that down through the legs into the earth. Then we scoop up and draw energy from the earth up through the legs into the same place, torso. We're going to pause there briefly, sink down, turn the hands over to continue to direct the energy up through the torso, through the spine, through the head, up into the sky. Turning palms up to gather, pull the energy down through the body. So our dantian, our abdomen are going to be like the waylay station, where we get to kind of gather and nurture the energy for a moment and then send it back in that direction. So coming up here is breathing in. We hold the breath briefly as we sink down slightly to rotate the hands up, and then we breathe out, sending energy up to the sky. We breathe in as we draw the energy down. Now here we're going to hold it a bit longer. We're going to hold the breath and bring the navel towards the spine just a little bit to firm the center, and then breathe out. Breathe in. Same thing, we're going to pull the navel towards the spine ever so slightly just to make the center firm, and rotate up and breathing out. So with this, it would be good to breathe in through the nose and breathe out through the mouth. So here, we're going to hold it and make this a little bit, it's toned, not really tight, but it's toned. And breathing out, pressing all that stored and accumulated built energy, that pressure, sending it down through the legs into the earth, and then drawing from the earth. And just momentarily, we have that same tonal kind of holding there, that firmness in the center, as we squat down a little bit and rotate the hands palm up and breathe out and up to the sky. Breathing in, hold, firm, as if you're packing the energy in there, storing it in there. Breathe out through the legs into the earth. So you just hold that pressure as you transition and breathe out as you come up. And here can be a longer pressurization if you can. But you go to timing that's not creating tension for yourself. So you can enjoy the flow of it. pausing. Let the navel come towards the spine slightly, create that tonal firmness. And breathing comfortably, inching your feet in. Moving your joints a little bit, noticing how they feel. Let your body be open. Okay. So, regular standing posture. Let the hips be pulled down by gravity. So hips pull down. So of course, that's going to rotate them a little bit, straightening and lengthening the lower back. Hips are pulled down to the earth. And the back crown of the head presses up to the sky. So we have these two seemingly different directions. So the down is yin, the up is yang. So those are going on at the same time. Opening up the spine. So focusing on the hips being pulled down, pulling those hips down a little bit, angling the back crown of the head to allow, feel like it's dropping the chin a little bit. So instead of the crown of the head, it's the back of the head, pointing directly to the sky. Let the shoulders fall away, belly released. So being conscious of those two different directions, yin and yang, sinking, pulling, rising and pushing. So pulling the hips down, pushing up through the spine, through the top of the head. And feeling a dynamic separation, those two actions occurring at the same time. Need to release the abdomen consciously, quite continuously, because the efforting may create some tension. And as much as you can, just have it as an intentional direction, causing the action in the body, rather than trying to do it muscularly. Hips pull down. Back crown of the head lifts up. Feel the effects in the body, in between. Release the abdomen. So that's a basic framework. From the Dantian, it's down. From the Dantian up, rises, flows up. And a dynamic action between those two different directions working at the same time. From the Dantian down is hanging, pulling down. Dantian up is rising, pressing up. Each out breath is a releasing breath. The arms take this shape, holding the tree shape, goes into the position and continues to open the same process that we're doing with the upper part of the spine. This kind of pressing or expansion outward. So the same action that's happening up through the spine is what buoys the arms forward. Take a moment to hang out a bit more, especially with those arms. And the same feeling you have going up through the spine, through the crown of the head, have that also happen through the shoulder joints, elbow joints, wrist joints, and through the finger joints. So the arms will be made to be longer than they were just moments ago. Nice imagery actually is your arms are wrapped around a large wooden bowl. And the fingers are seeking each other, trying to lengthen and grow the arms around that wooden bowl, but by opening those joints. So that same expansive pressing feeling going up through the spine, you put that into the joints of the arms, shoulders, elbows, wrists, and through the fingers. And as you do that, that pressing energy, expansive energy through the spine and through the arms, connect that to the pulling down at the hips. And release the abdomen. Notice the body. Notice the shaping and angling of the body, things that are affected. And let the hanging, dropping of the hips open up the shoulder joints and arm joints even more. And allow the spine and crown to lift. Same direct connection that a teeter-totter or lever has. You press one end down, it automatically makes the other end rise. Have the same direct connection. Hanging, pulling of the hips down has the same equal effect up through the spine and out through the arms. Okay. And keeping that same shape, basically same feeling and shape, not lose it. Come into holding the ball in a bow stance. So we keep that same feeling, same shape, rather than collapsing and making a new shape. Keep that same feeling, same quality, same essence of a shape as we go into some movement. So all the feelings and qualities we were just doing, but now in mobility, in movement. But it's like we're doing the standing work. We just happen to be doing it in movement. So can I hang those hips, even pull the hips down to create a stretch in the spine? Can I point the back crown of the head more directly to the sky? And that pressing, lifting up through the spine, put that into the joints of the arms. So this is the openness and qualities we want in Tai Chi movement. Notice any ensuing tightness or tension or resistance. See if you can release that a bit. Release the abdomen. More and more it becomes a process of releasing, 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 opening, opening, opening. So not so much about doing and moving, it's the emphasis is on hanging out, releasing, opening, sinking or hanging, opening, expanding, rather than doing. And let that sinking and opening drive the movement. It's that hanging and opening, it's sinking and expanding. It's actually punging the movement or driving that movement. Just like filling a balloon. And if you want to try a little bit of fresh knees. What's less important is the movement and the getting to the exact positions. You want to keep the quality, keep the feeling, and have that quality and feeling make the movement. And also noticing when you lose some of it, where you lose it, how you lose it, and letting it come back, doing what you need to do to have it come back. Usually that's slowing down. Could be mean making the movement smaller. Pull the hips down to stretch the spine, to point the back crown up, and send that stretching, opening, feeling through the shoulder joints, outward through the arms. And try some movement, room length or two, and whatever movement you would like, whether parting horse's mane or brush knee, whatever you'd like. And again, noticing when we lose it. So notice what happens when you actually have to pick up a leg and step. So it takes radical patience, just hang out there. You might even pause briefly. Energetically, you don't pause. You feel and inflate, empty and open. Pull open, press open. So the inside quality doesn't stop. But physically, you might pause to get that quality back before you resume into the next part of the movement. Again, standing is probably where you lose some of it. So can you slow that part down and increase the pungingness, increase the process we've been working on today, increase it, slow down the movement, the physical movement, slow down, even stop the external movement to emphasize the internal movement. Let's do a little bit of stationary cloud hands. That's a really good one to really hang the hips and point the back crown straight up to the sky. And send that rising up through the spine, up to the crown, out through the shoulder joints and arms. And let's come back to standing, releasing, centering. Each out breath releases more opening, more hanging, more flowing up and out. Releasing on each out breath.